if you show up to a meeting and there's literally no agenda at all, then you shouldn't have the meeting. Welcome to another episode of How Many CTOs Does It Take podcast. My name is Brad Hefta-Gaub, and this is my co-host, Scott Porad.
And let's actually go back to the staff meeting for a second.
Yeah.
How do you like to run those staff meetings? Let's actually prime that pump a little bit.
Yeah, prime that a little bit. There's so many. That's a big question.
There's a few different approaches I've
Well, we
used.
start by everybody having to do push-ups. That's how we start. Is that what you meant?
I once worked at a place where, we talked about stand-up. We would do plank up. Let me tell you, when you were doing planks, your stand-up ends really fast. You get about a 90 seconds, you get through the whole team with what their updates are. Okay, what are the patterns I've seen? Okay, I've seen the most common pattern, the ball of mud pattern, which I'll refer to as the ball of mud pattern, the most common pattern, which is the ad hoc agenda topics, where there's an agenda, anybody can throw topics on there, and you just talk about random stuff. And sometimes that stuff is really meaningful to the directors, and sometimes it feels like it's a giant waste of time. That's one pattern. Another pattern is what I'll call essentially the stand-up pattern, which is it's a status update. So each director is like, here's what we got going on. Here's what we got going on. Here's what we're planning on doing. Here's what we're blocked on. Right, that kind of stat thing. I have seen the more structured rhythm. That's structured rhythm, obviously, but a little bit more structured. Maybe once a month, or on some rhythm, you're doing a deep dive. Like, in fact, this is what I was doing with my last team. We did the week. So sprints were 2 weeks. So the week after a sprint was over, we reviewed the schedule. So we looked ahead, like, okay, what got done with that sprint? What's going to happen going forward? And then on the off week, we did an operations review. So how was our not our engineering performance, but our systems performance, uptime stuff. So we just toggled back and forth between those things. And then there were some ad hoc topics in addition to those. So different approaches to it. And I'm just wondering, and I've never found one I love. They all have something, they all lack something. And I'm just wondering how you approach it.
I think first of all, I think you've got it's always going to be situational, right? So it's always going to be it depends answer, right? So what's the stage of the company? What are the challenges it's facing? What are the do you manage project coordination via some other meeting? So in what I would prefer, my general preference would be that the purpose of the staff meeting would be the at my level of VP or CTOs, my staff is going to be, directors or VPs, right? And so at that level, your project management, I believe, should be dashboard driven. It should not become a project coordination problem. Shouldn't be coming, like, certainly at the sprint level, shouldn't be coming to this directors meeting, because hopefully we solved that via dashboards and other process, etc. Now, it could be that we've got like a big topic that does have multi-group implications that, maybe we've gotten maybe we have some kind of a pivot that has to happen, or a curveball was thrown from the business that needs to radically change a bunch of our projects. Then certainly that would be a good thing to talk about in this staff meeting. But I would be avoiding any kind of project updates and things like that. I think that to use your kind of the taxonomy that you gave, I don't necessarily like the ball of mud, but I think what I've tended to do is, like I said, pre-published agendas that anyone can add to. So everybody that's coming to the meeting gets to put their agenda item on the agenda, and then we do some collective adjudication where, it's my staff meeting. So like, I'm going to make the call about whether or not we need to, how much time we need to spend on that topic based on my perspective of the business import of it. So I'm a general, like, let's get the agenda before we start. Let's do a quick agreement on, are we going to try to cover these and in what order? And then let's try to stick to them and pace it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you show up to a meeting and there's literally no agenda at all, then you shouldn't have the meeting.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
the gears that are going in my head right now are thinking, what is it that I dislike about the open agenda process? And I think what are the strengths and weaknesses of it? Well, the strength is it creates an open forum for people to bring whatever they need to bring. That's good because you need to have that space. The weakness is it doesn't always have a direction. Well, your organization is trying to head in a direction, and as a leadership team, you should be trying to move it in that direction. And oftentimes, the topics that people bring up have nothing really to do with moving in that direction. I think I'd like to shape that staff meeting like, hey, every week there is some aspect of this meeting where we are talking about how are we moving in the direction that we need to be moving in.
I would say, like, if I had a director that constantly showed up to the staff meeting and was effectively pulling us in a direction that wasn't aligned with the direction we are trying to move the organization in, then that's a let's have that conversation with that
Yeah,
director.
that's not what I mean. Let me give an example. It's not a real one, but a director puts on the list, hey, we're overspending on our Circle CI.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that doesn't, yes, that's a real problem that we need to figure out what to do with, but it's, for lack of a better description, an ordinary problem.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that's like, but wouldn't that be a good example to say, great, thank you for bringing it to the staff meeting. Everybody that is utilizing the Circle CI, let you go identify your usage of it and come back to the staff meeting. Let's set a goal of next month and have an action plan. I'll defer to you. You guys own it. You guys run with it. Let me know how I can help.
100%. I think what I want to fit that in to is a context of we are trying to manage to budget.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah. Love it.
So, when it's
so zoom the camera out.
It needs to be in some context of the things we're trying to accomplish, which are we're trying to keep our systems up, we're trying to operate within budget, we're trying to deliver new software on schedule, right? So and we're trying to have our team be engaged and happy and satisfied with their work. So those are like the 4 buckets, really. I'm just thinking this out loud right now, but that's almost like the context we need to run the staff meeting in, which
totally.
Is when we create, it's even when we create that open agenda, there are 4 buckets, and you can put your item in any bucket, but it needs to be under one of these buckets. I guess there could be a miscellaneous bucket, but if it's miscellaneous, then I wonder what it would be.
Well, yeah, and I think that no, I like that idea too. Like you could definitely generally say the goal of this meeting is to cover one of these 4 pillars. Here's my 4 pillars. Throw your agenda item into one of those. That's great. The other thing I would say though is I can picture that person bringing this Circle CI issue to the meeting, and they could bring it in a way where they've already gotten that message about the big themes and they're bringing it in that context. Hey folks, yes. I know that fiscal responsibility is important, uptime is important, CI/CD is a big piece of that. I've noticed because in my own personal audit, great audit, you're doing personal audits. That's an excellent role, and then you have an opportunity to basically go, kudos, Janet, you have demonstrating all of the attributes I like. Thank you for bringing it to this. Everybody, let's please follow up on this and let me know how you want to report back. But I'm thinking a month from now, kind of come back with either your proposed solution, if you feel I need to adjudicate it, or let me know how you're integrating it into your go forward plans once you've come up with that, right? And then you get this opportunity, right, to demonstrate that Janet brought to the table the issue in the important context and you might say, thank you for bringing that, Janet. I would have preferred that you work with, Vinush and Bob and Carl and Carlos already, and you guys could have brought that to me.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the thing that I'm taking from this, I'm actually going to put it in place for my next staff meeting, is simply to take that agenda. It's just we just have a Google Doc too, and right now it's just a bullet pointed list, and I'm just going to make some headings. Yeah. And say, hey, just put your thing under the right bullet.
Yeah, I
right?
love it.
And then actually maybe start to shift our staff meeting a little bit like, hey, we're going to actually go through these one by one, these section by section, and talk about them. Actually, that's the structure of the staff meeting. Is there anything we need to talk about in regard to process this week, even if there's nothing in the agenda? Hey, I noticed there's nothing in the agenda. Is our process working smoothly? Awesome, great. Let's move on. Let's talk about our cost, our budget.
Yeah.
You know, Michelle has got the CI spend here, which is we keep on topping up every month. What's going on there, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's maybe a way to split the difference between some structure of what we're trying to accomplish, but the freedom and liberty of everybody being able to surface something.
You want people to bring issues, right? You want them to feel comfortable bringing issues. So you don't want to like slap them down if they bring an issue that is ordinary, to use your term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You want them to feel accountable to make decisions that are aligned with the goals of the company, and not feel like they have to get your permission to make a positive difference, right? And so that to me is always this delicate balance with these staff meetings where it's like, look, I want you to, if you have questions about what our objective here, if you have questions about what I would do, great, I'm here for that. But generally speaking, I want you to feel like you can run with this stuff and make a difference, right? And I also feel like they want, like the classic, there's a group of people that they do sometimes want to be told what to do, and
sure.
Hopefully at the director level, they feel a sense of autonomy where they don't feel like there's very few things that they feel like they need to have you tell them what to do, right? Because they're essentially a part of your staff. They need to be, autonomous appropriately.
There's another little piece I'm trying to address. So there are 2 of these staff meetings each week. There's my engineering staff meeting. So that's about 10, let's say 10 people, maybe a few less. And then it's 8, 9, including myself. So, and then there is our all product and engineering staff meeting, which is about 20. So it's product management leaders and engineering leaders together.
Mm.
And here's a symptom I'm trying to solve. In both of these, they both have the sort of ad hoc agenda strategies. And in both of them, there's a lot of blank looks on the camera. It's like, why am I here? I'm just here to listen to some random stuff that other people brought up.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking,
is that more of a problem in your team meeting or in the co-owned meeting?
Owned, but really both to some degree. It's more in the co-owned because the topics sometimes are of more interest to the product managers versus the engineers, or vice versa. But I haven't seen a ton of topics where it's like both groups are like, we're super engaged, right? Like, ooh, this is one that really is between both of us. Anyway, that's beside the point. I think maybe by making a little structure, what I'm actually doing is signaling to the attendees, this is what we're here about.
Yeah, totally.
We're not here to discuss random stuff. We're actually here to work together on a set of goals.
Yeah.
Right? And then I'm hopeful that'll create a different type of engagement. Especially if I take an approach where every time those 4 or 5 areas I just outlined that you're working on as a leadership team, every time we're saying, hey, anything in the people department we need to be talking about right now.
Yeah.
And there's a structure there for people to then actually start to engage and think about what I should be bringing. Yeah. So this is great. This is cool.
Yeah.
We got some more today.
That was another episode of How Many CTOs Does It Take podcast. Everybody remember to subscribe, rate, and review. That helps us grow our listenership. And we really appreciate the time that you put in to listen to this episode. It's great talking to you again, Scott. See you next week. This episode of How Many CTOs Does It Take podcast was edited by Saffron Hefta-Gaub. Our theme song was AI generated by Brad. Please follow us on all the social media platforms at How Many CTOs Pod. You can find us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, X, TikTok, and Patreon, or at our website at howmanyctospod.com. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe on the podcast platform of your choice. Thanks for listening.